We're just still seeing a lot of people join the webinar, which is really exciting. It's so exciting to be here tonight. I think as we watch those numbers go up, I'll just maybe start with some of the introduction. So today's webinar is going to be about all ALS, which is a really nationwide consortium funded by the NIH, bringing together 35 centers, 2 coordinating centers, and thousands, hopefully thousands of participants with the shared goal of understanding ALS better, identifying drug targets, understanding our endpoints better, selecting better outcome measures for clinical trials and hastening drug development, as well as understanding disease biology. All of this is really an incredibly exciting goal. The webinar today is going to really be run by Praveena, Mohan, and Courtney Igne, who are the lead project managers on a really incredible team that is moving this project forward, has shaped it from idea to enrolling and enrolling very well. And you'll see some of those numbers. And they'll explain a little bit about what their job is in moving this forward and in keeping all of sort of keeping track of all the threads of everybody's work so that we can do that in concert. So Courtney and Praveena, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think we can go to the next slide if you don't mind, Mimi. And we can go to the next slide as well. So I'll just introduce myself and then I'll let Praveena introduce herself. But my name is Courtney Igne. As James said, I'm a project manager here at MGH under the NCRI, working on this project. And we are, as you can see, we have 2 coordinating centers, the West and East. I work with James very closely on the East and Praveena works on the West. So Praveena, I don't know if you want to come, jump off and say hello.
Hi, I'm Praveena Mohan. I'm the Senior Project Manager at Barrow Neurological Institute. I work with Dr. Robert Bowser and other PIs here at the BNI. We keep getting confused between West Coast and East Coast sides, but it's just a coordinating center. We're on the Phoenix, Arizona, right now enjoying the really nice weather out here.
We are jealous over here on the East Coast. Yes. Excellent. Next slide. So just to kind of provide an overview, if you haven't seen this before, happy to run through it. And if you have seen it, just some general updates for you tonight. But we have 35 clinical sites across the US, including Puerto Rico. And we kind of have a list, as you can see, the sites listed in blue are considered the West Coast sites. The sites in yellow are considered the East Coast sites. And you'll see they're not necessarily geographically East or West. It's really just kind of sites that the coordination center oversees. So those in blue are overseen by Praveena and her team and Bob and his team from the BNI Center. And then those in yellow are overseen by James and our team here at the NCRI. So if you're participating at one of those sites, you may be interacting with the team that interacts with us. Next slide, please. So just a quick introduction into, some of the things some of the studies and projects we have going under the consortium. We have 2 protocols that are active and enrolling across all sites or working to get up at all sites. We have a study called Prevent ALS, which is focusing on understanding early stages of disease for people at risk. So these are people who may have known genetic changes that cause ALS or FTD, or people who have a strong family history or a compelling family history that might put them at risk. And these are asymptomatic people who are enrolling into the Prevent study. The Assess protocol is a separate protocol. This is for participants who have ALS. We're enrolling people both who will come into the clinic at regular intervals, and then we actually have a completely remote cohort as well, who will never come into a clinic unless they really want to. And then on top of that, within the Assess study, we also have a control group. So these are for people, again, who do not have symptoms of ALS. Next slide, please. And then just some quick updates. So, as you saw on the map, we have 35 sites. Of those 35, we have 28 sites who have received IRB approval. And this is kind of the process that every site has to go through that, the IRB reviews their local site policy, their consent forms, and all the materials that says, yeah, this site has met the requirements and has kind of the basic regulatory foundations to participate and host the study. And then we have 18 out of 35 sites who are activated. And sites that are activated are sites that have been given the green light to enroll. So there is a difference between those two milestones. You have to have IRB approval before we can activate you. So or activate the site. So as you kind of, learn more about the study and the research, those are some of the steps we take to make sure sites are ready and can safely and ethically enroll participants. Typically, sites are activated within 7 weeks of IRB approval. Again, there are some extra steps that happen between IRB approval and being activated. Some of those things include protocol training, receiving equipment and supplies, completing things like delegation logs and regulatory documentation, which we can talk a little bit more about later as we kind of will open up a conversation after some of these updates. But this is great. So we have 80% of sites IRB approved, over 50% are activated. Next slide, please. And then just a quick overview of the sites that are activated. Again, that previous map showed you all of our sites who we hope will participate, and we're aiming to get them up and running. And this is a map that's actually pulled directly from our website that shows you what sites have been activated and you can actually enroll in today if you wanted to. So I think from here, I'll hand it off to Praveena, and she'll go over some additional study updates with you guys.
Thanks, Courtney. Next slide, please. So currently we have 188 participants enrolled as of yesterday. There are 67 on-site participants, and ASSESS protocol, as we mentioned before, ASSESS protocol has 3 cohorts: symptomatic on-site participants, symptomatic ALS off-site participants who are remotely completing the visits, and then controlled participants who are completing the visits on site. So we have 67 enrolled for symptomatic on-site, 12 for off-site remote, and 28 for controlled participants. And in PREVENT study, we have 81 participants enrolled, out of which 10 participants are involved in the sub-study who are interested in knowing their genetic test results. Next slide, please. This slide kind of tells you what we calculated at the beginning, what we projected the activation numbers will be over the timeline we're looking at from last year to September of this year, and both for activation of sites and enrollment of participants. The left one, we were hoping to enroll 16 or 17 sites by end of Jan, and I think we are meeting that target at this time. And for enrollment, we are lagging a little bit behind the projected chart, but very close, and it's going to pick up quite a bit as we start activating sites in the coming months. So December was a holiday month, so there was a little bit of a lag. We kind of anticipated that with our projection, and you can see we're slowly starting to pick up this month. Thank you. Next slide, please. Just wanted to quickly touch base on the All ALS website. It is live right now. There is a QR code there which will directly take you to the website. The homepage has like quick information about the study and also like a tracker at this time, how many sites are activated, how many participants are enrolled, and so forth. So, and then there's a map which shows you all the active sites and the upcoming sites. It's like the light blue states is where we are looking to activate sites soon. And then we'll have contact information for the coordinators that you can reach out directly. We also have a participant interest form. So if you hit the participate, the blue button at the homepage on top, it'll take you to a participant interest form. You can complete this. This is a red cap survey form. Once completed, we get a notification. And one of the patient navigator who's assigned for the study will reach out to you and find potential sites you could participate in. There is also all-ALS, info@all-als.org email address. I think it's on the next slide. Yeah, that is the email. You can reach out directly to the patient navigator. We also have listed the clinicaltrials.gov links for the ASSESS and PREVENT, and also the NEALS trial finder link. Thank you. Next slide, please. I don't know, Courtney, do you want to take over here again?
Yeah. So you've seen this slide just a few moments ago, but what we really wanted to do today, so aside from just kind of providing you some updates around the study and kind of how we're progressing and getting things off the ground, we really wanted to maybe take a moment as project managers to kind of open the curtains a bit and let you take a peek beside them as community members and kind of get a feel for what's going on behind the scenes. You don't see a lot sometimes. We really only see maybe some press releases when a site's activated and enrollment updates. You don't see a lot of what goes on behind the scenes. So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what we do as project management, how we work together, and in particular for this project, how we're getting things moving and trying to keep things moving. So maybe if you want to go to the next slide, Mimi. So as you guys know, we have two coordination centers and we work really closely together as project management teams. So we share resources and that's kind of the beauty of this project and the relationship we have is Praveena and I, as senior project managers, we can share a lot of ideas and resources and thoughts, but we each have a project management team as well and they do the same thing. So we're really kind of able to speed up a lot of processes because we have a lot of different viewpoints, a lot of ideas, and a lot of resources and templates and things we can all share across the board. I think Praveena, between the two teams, we have over 50 people contributing to the movement of this study. And it's not just project managers. We work really closely too with other functional teams, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But really the job of a project manager is to kind of keep people and groups accountable. We're really here to help set and manage goals, milestones, and deliverables. So we're kind of herders of cats. We really do a lot of pushing, making sure people stay on target and that we meet our goals for you and for the sponsor of the study. So I don't know, Praveena, if you maybe want to talk a little bit about like how we work with some of the other teams that also support some of our functional teams that support the project.
Sure. Yeah, most of the team members who are here have been working in ALS research for a while, and they all are amazing team members. We really have an important part to play in this project. It's coming from different functional groups like data management. We have data management team, like 4 or 5 team members who are involved in developing the EDC where the data goes in. We also have a monitoring team who makes sure the quality of the data is good. They check in with the sites once in 6 months to review their source documents. We also have IRB team who are involved with IRB submissions management. And then admin, grants, contract finance, quality assurance, outcomes, and vendors. Vendors is a big piece with this project. This is one of the biggest projects I've worked with, and it's so important that we select the right vendors and it's all set up correctly, that things are working smoothly. So, and we have 5 PM project managers who are amazing and who are working with different aspects of this. And as a senior PM, it's important for us that the goals and the milestones of this project is met, and there are no roadblocks that kind of that hits us. Courtney, you want to add anything?
Yeah. And I saw Allison had a comment about sharing, why this project's so important. And I think, these things on the screen are wonderful, but the most important one, and James, I could see you come off mute, but I think accelerating the research outcomes is really the crux of what we're doing and sharing the information and the data we're collecting. This project is really about sharing and transparency. And we're doing that by collecting large amounts of data, both, clinical, biosample, and gosh, I can't think of the other word, but collecting
digital
yes. And then the goal is to collect and kind of really aggregate this data from a lot of different populations, from a lot of people. This is a really aggressive recruitment effort that we're putting forward. We are hoping to enroll over 2,000 people in the next, 12 to 15 months. And so you're a big part of that. And, accelerating research outcomes is going to be done by collecting a lot of data and making it available for research, for better targeted therapies and other projects in the future. So I don't know, James, I saw you're off mute if you have other things to contribute.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was just going to have you guys talk a little bit about, so one of the things that makes this so impactful is that we have some embedded questions. We want to learn more about how the ALS-FRSR sort of works, how it changes over time, learn about some of the new outcome measures that we're including in our electronic patient reported outcome measures that are being delivered through surveys by email, like ACEs, which is kind of another functional scale, like some of the fatigue measures, things that really matter to people with ALS. And we've had people with lived experience give input into kind of what are those. We have a new scale called the ARES, which is about breathing, which we hope will give us new insights. I think all of these are really important, but I wondered if you guys would talk a little bit about some of the home phlebotomy and working with BioSend. And let me just set that up a little bit so people understand this. One of the things that is very valuable about this study is that we collect blood from people who are participating. And that's a source of analyzing for biomarkers. And biomarkers can tell us about what's going wrong in the disease. They can be markers of what's going wrong in the disease. They can guide us to a new part of the problem of the disease, and maybe the core problem of the disease, so that we can sort of target that in a whole new way. But we need these biofluids. But we also have to get them into the hands of the right people. So we don't want to collect them and have them sit in a freezer. They're doing no good there. We want to get them to researchers around the globe who can use them to turn them into answers about how do we attack this disease. So I wondered if you could talk about home phlebotomy and about BioSend.
Yeah, would love to. Praveena, if you want to talk a little bit about them, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So in terms of 35 different sites are doing CSF collection and blood collection samples, and it's all being sent to a central biorepository, NINDS, NIH selected biorepository, which is BioSend. So we have a team of people whom we meet with on a regular basis, and it's been it's amazing collaboration with them, getting the operational piece set up, having a manual that is shared with the sites on how these samples should be processed, stored, and shipped to BioSend within 2 weeks. So they have both ambient and frozen samples that are being shipped. And in addition to that, we have the remote cohort, which involves collection from only blood from participants who cannot access these 35 sites. So we have worked with a vendor, few vendors we had to reach out, get information about them, how they work, the cost and everything. And then as a team come up with, a good vendor that we could work with and operationalize all of the startup setup. And that took a long time for us. Courtney, I don't know if it was like a 9 months process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, we were so excited the first day they shipped the remote samples to BioSend. That was the most exciting day for us, because a lot of work went into it. And now that we have all of the samples at BioSend, the next step is just reconciliation, quality checks, and all of those next steps we are looking at. And for future research, how do we share those samples? So,
yeah, no, that's right. And I think, so because this is an NIH project, there are sort of built-in assurances about how do we share, and NIH actually has a structure for something called a BRAC, I think it's called a BRAC, Biorepository Advisory Committee, and that will ensure that people can apply to have these samples and that they'll be sent out. The biorepository is really robust, so it's been a lot of fun to work with BioSend, and they store samples from. So I want to move a little bit into integration with other studies. So they store samples from all FTD. FTD we know is a related disorder. We have a question about target ALS. I don't know, does one of you want to talk a little bit about, so there's somebody who's saying, look, I participate in target ALS. I'm giving spinal fluid and blood there. How are you working together? Are these at odds? Are they together? Bob, I don't know if you want to answer that or if we want to have Courtney and Praveena. We've all been working hard on this piece.
Yeah, sure. I can answer that, James. So target ALS is another study. So I actually co-direct that as well. The target ALS sites are actually part of all ALS. And so if you are participating as a target ALS member, in essence, data and samples will become shareable across the two studies. And if you want, we've actually here at the BNI actually had a few individuals that participated in target ALS. And when it ended, they actually joined all ALS to continue to be involved in research. And so there's opportunities to further provide information and samples And again, all of that will be linked together. All the data is linked together and will be made accessible to anyone throughout the world through a data portal that is being developed during this budget year. So we're incredibly excited about that as well. So yes, so Target ALS is intimately involved into all ALS. Target does a few things differently, but that's fine. And many of the sites do things slightly differently, other studies that are around the world. I even see another question about ALS TDI, the ARC study. So is ASSESS different, better than other longitudinal studies? Different, yes. Wouldn't say, I hate to say one's better than others, but it is a little bit different. And so the TDI ARC study is a natural history study that is collecting clinical information, fluids, and digital health assessment using accelerometers. So it is set up a little bit differently than ASSESS. We're developing and collecting speech at the moment, but we're also looking to add additional digital health measures as we march forward.
And I'll jump in there too, because I think it's really important that people understand that Fernando Vieira, who leads ALS-TDI, really was part of the team that launched the ARC study, is a close collaborator with us, has been really helpful in sort of setting up all ALS and helping us to figure out how do we make sure that these are a part of a quilt tapestry that comes together and has seams rather than things that overlap and sort of work at odds. So they are slightly different, although they're of a feather. I think if you're in the ARC study, you certainly can be in all ALS as well. But if it feels like too much, it's incredible that you're in the ARC study and you are contributing as well. For Target ALS, there's a natural history study that's going on at a number of centers, where we've got a grid that tells us as investigators at each of the sites, okay, if someone's in this study, how do we enroll them in that study? So we can maximize what the information we're getting and the biofluids without duplicating. The CDC registry is another one that a lot of people are in. And in fact, we're encouraging people to be in both ASSESS all ALS as well as the CDC registry. And in fact, we are setting up a way to share information back and forth between these two federally funded studies so that we have more robust databases. So we hope people will be in both of those studies. And then there are also, many centers have kind of a single center, they'll say, look, at this ALS clinic, we're collecting some blood. And I would say two things about that. Number one, I think that can be very important for some kind of local projects that are just getting going, that are maybe investigating something that's experimental and not quite at a level where they would request big amounts of plasma from all ALS, but may grow into that. So that can be also really valuable. Usually those will run alongside something like all ALS. And in fact, we even have a provision within all ALS that sites can keep some of that biofluid, some of that plasma at their site so that they can kind of use that for those seed projects, those really highly pilot experimental projects. So I think that's really important.
Exactly. And there was another question about, will data be accessible to researchers outside the US, including those in Canada? Well, this is an NIH-funded program, so participation right now is only in the United States and Puerto Rico. The data and samples, all the biosamples, will be made fully available to anyone in the world. So yes, Canadians and everyone outside the US will have access to both the data and the biosamples.
And I will add to the access to them it's a formal process. There's a request process and an application that would have to be reviewed and approved. It's not just necessarily open data, but anyone, with a solid thought process and project in mind could request access to data or samples, which I think might get at that last question a little bit around AI platform drug development companies. Again, if they put in a request that's reasonable and it's reviewed and approved, yes, they could access it.
Well, other questions. So do we envision that processes used to gather data off-site will be acceptable to the FDA for data gathering clinical trials? And can we check their validity? So this is actually, we've had a lot of conversations with NIH and with the what's called the AMP-ALS group, which actually includes representatives from industry, from NIH, and from the FDA. And so we've actually been able to talk directly with the FDA about, what are the questions that are open? What are the concerns? And I think this is going to be an evolving process. The FDA clearly has an interest in digital markers and sort of decentralized clinical trial methodology. And so we're really building that bridge, and in fact are looking at digital health technologies now to sort of create a sub-study so that we can really begin to kind of, validate such a strong word. There are lots of very specific definitions for validate, but to sort of explore and, if you will, quote unquote, validate some of these measures so that they could be used in clinical trials.
Yeah, and the exciting thing, as James alluded to, we've had multiple meetings with members and leaders at the FDA, and they're really excited about using this platform, the All ALS platform, to really dig deeper and figure out what are sort of outcome measures that the FDA can really ultimately accept as outcome measures in upcoming future clinical trials. And so we're actually have already built into this study some questions and timings of collecting of data that will facilitate improvements and better indicators within our current clinical outcome measures of, what's really the minimal difference that's important to a patient. And the FDA is really excited about how we can quickly pivot and add in additional features into All ALS that will help them in making decisions regulatory in the future. So it's incredibly exciting.
Yeah. I think we're at time. We should, or a little over time, I think, actually. And so we should probably wrap up. So I want to do two things. There were a couple of questions about NIH and how some of the recent announcements about NIH communication will affect this. This project is going. The funding is there. This is not going to affect this project going. And we are, I think everybody is navigating the best science, and I think we want to be cautious in how we interpret some of the news stories. But we're funded, we're moving forward, and if there are reasons that our NIH colleagues can't travel, then they'll join some of those meetings, remotely if they have to. But we're not sure exactly about some of those details. But please know that this project is going. And full tilt ahead. So really exciting there. I want to thank Courtney and Praveena, not just for putting together great slides today, and not just for walking everybody through what it is to sort of, manage the million strings on a large project like this, but really for doing that work and being in so many ways the heart of our teams that really are working as one and making this successful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
definitely an amazing opportunity to be working on this study. Yeah.
Yep. It's a wonderful project and it's moving at light speed. So fun to see.
Yeah. Fun to be a part of.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Catherine and Mimi and Allison.